The introduction. This is the current waste management model. I have shown the waste processing units. You can call it landfill, you can call it dump. In practice, you may find one or two dumps or something like this. The objective study were neutralize the difficulties of current model, look for economic sustainability, look for environmental sustainability, try to integrate it with city development. The model should have a sustainable life cycle. The project risks should be sustainable. Accordingly, the waste classification is done. The waste is classified as soft bio-waste, hard bio-waste, vegetation waste, non-toxic waste, toxic waste. This classification is in alignment of how we are going to process it. The percentages shown are just to have an idea how many processing units will be required. The processing of waste, soft bio-waste is processed with anaerobic digestions, hard waste by composting. Vegetation waste can be either processed with anaerobic digestions or composted. It is listed separately here because the process chain is different. Non-toxic waste will be filled in a micro landfill. Toxic waste is processed as per the norms. This is the key concept here. This is a micro landfill. I'll just in detail with this as to what it is. As you see on the diagram, this micro landfill is a strip of 3 meters by 100 meters. It has a standard aggregate 0.3 meter width on either side. The central portion is filled with non-toxic waste to achieve a leveled surface. The waste is crushed and compacted as required. The stretch is now scientifically capped with precasted RCC slabs. While requisite load-bearing capacity, this strip can now be used as a road. So this 3 by 100 meter strip can be anywhere in the city. The micro landfill as shown can consume 120 ton of waste at density 2.5 and 0.2 meter average layer thickness of compacted mass. In the diagram, the earth's surface is plain. In practice, it will be uneven, both length as well as width. The concept of micro landfill to process waste within city, convert it to utility road is first the key concept of the derived model. It eliminates requirement of conventional landfill. These are the number of units which will be required in a city of 10 million population. Two things are to note here. All the units are micro level. The biogas plants are of 20 kg average capacity. The composting units are of 200 kg capacity per day, which will be just a small portion of municipal garden. The landfills required or the micro landfills required are 20 for a city with 10 million population, which is well within the norms, requirements of the city. The responsibilities. The responsibility starts with citizen. The citizen is either supposed to process the waste or drop it at a designated drop point. The designated drop point for soft bio-waste is a municipal level, ward level biogas plant. The hard waste is dropped at municipal garden. Whatever other waste comes from the dealers of goods and services, it is returned back to the same dealers of goods and services on the next shopping. The vegetation waste is collected by ward officer and dropped at either municipal biogas plant or composting unit. Involvement of each and every citizen in waste disposal process is second key element of the derived model. The waste disposal responsibilities need some extra efforts on citizens' part, but the gains are phenomenal. The dealers, what do they do with their part of the waste? They either drop it at a transfer station or at a waste processing unit. Transfer station, all the non-toxic waste will be dropped. At waste processing units, the toxic waste will be dropped. What do the municipalities do? They have to specify the designated drop points and maintain the ward level biogas plant, micro composting units, waste transfer stations, and toxic waste processing units. What we see here is a switch over to polluter pays principle. Now, what happens is the citizen is dropping the waste at their own cost. The toxic waste is processed at fee, and this will result in the savings to the municipality. Whatever municipality is spending on the waste responsibilities or the waste processing can be used for other civic amenities. The individual will pay or he will incur the expenses in proportion to the waste generated by an individual. In the current model, I pay taxes, everybody is charged same irrespective of whether I generate 1 kg of waste, my neighbor may generate 10 kg of waste. When I incur the cost for dropping of the waste myself, if I am generating 1 kg waste, I incur the expenses accordingly. If my neighbor is generating 10 kg waste, my neighbor is incurring expenses accordingly. So it becomes with reference to how much waste you generate. Pollution pays principle regime is third key element of the derived model. It imparts sound economic sustainability to the model. A number of supports will be required. From the municipality side, we require support to create awareness. Public is key player in the proposed model. Adoption of biogas plant residential premises requires mass awareness. 1 ton biogas plant at ward level serves this purpose. It can act as nodal point to help citizens with operation and maintenance of micro biogas plants. Learn to children and learn through children can be another way to get to awareness. Children bags, water bottles, stationery, etc. can be green varieties, which will make children conscious about environment issues. The school curriculum can have topics on environment. In addition, the municipalities will need to construct the micro landfills at the rate the waste is generated so that everything is cleared on day-to-day basis. The industry support will require in terms of the biogas plants of the required size, in terms of the burner, in terms of the control element for switchover of fuel, because in the kitchen, the biogas alone will not be sufficient. The housewives will be using biogas along with LPG. A case study. A simple case study was done on Indian dairy milk industry. India has a well-established dairy milk industry. Approximately 60 billion plastic bags are wasted annually. The milk supply chain has wholesaler, retailer, and delivery boy. This volume of plastic bags can be collected back easily. Consumers hand over the waste plastic bags to delivery boy hands over to retailer, and retailer hands over to wholesaler. The only requirement is change mindset a bit and a bit of effort from consumer to the wholesaler. The waste bags can easily collected back during milk delivery schedule itself. The waste milk packets have recyclable value. The product is processed to produce material which is usable in road construction. Anywhere in the process chain, the waste bags can be sold to local waste dealer. This will generate some extra revenue. In current waste management model, most of the waste milk packets are part of municipal waste. A substantial part of it is littered on roads and streets, and a small but significant part finds back to animal stomachs as a result of roadside vegetation grazing. In derived model, the waste is reused. None of it is finding path to stomach of animals, and the process chain people benefit with some extra revenue. The benefits from one product, dairy milk itself, are significant. This will prevent the animals from pain and misery caused due to plastic deposit in belly. Similar results will be accruable from other packing materials also. Involvement of dealers of goods and services in waste management chain is fourth key element in the derived model. This promotes resource recovery. The derived model is as seen, it is totally decentralized. The derived model is shown in diagram. The model is totally decentralized. Waste processing units are seamlessly integrated to city development. Waste processing units outside city process only toxic waste. Achievement of near total decentralization of waste processing units is fifth key element of the derived model. This minimizes the role of outsourced elements and imparts very high degree of robustness to the model. The compliance, it has got elements for self-motivated compliance. The model has inbuilt elements to achieve self-motivated public cooperation, decent returns on investment from micro-biogas plants, well-maintained municipal gardens, and improved road infrastructure due to continuous requirement of micro-landfills drives home the benefits of derived model to public. Public cooperation self-motivation elements in the form of gains in day-to-day life is sixth key element of the derived model. Everything will not be self-motivated, so we need some enforced compliance. Mass installation and operation of biogas plant at residential premises can be accelerated by incentives for a limited period. Use of rear vision cameras and RFID tags can be incorporated to detect violation. Stiff fines can be imposed for violators. Part of the fines imposed on violators can be paid back to the general public to encourage reporting of violations. Involvement of public to report violations helps in compliance monitoring at affordable administrative costs. The results: all redundant elements are eliminated. Conventional waste processing units process only toxic waste. All but toxic waste is converted to resource. Toxic waste composition is known and can be processed with available technical expertise. Integration of dealers of goods and services in waste drop responsibility promotes reduction, reuse, and recycling of packing material, which otherwise is wasted after single use. The project risks involved are practically nil and limited to risks associated with toxic waste processing units. Use of mature and tested technologies for waste processing units imparts high success rate. The uncertainties associated with mega waste processing plants become past. The model has practically nil project risks. This is the seventh key element of the derived model. To evaluate the model, resource recovery is near ultimate. Total decentralization of waste processing units minimizes waste consumption of energy in waste transportation. Waste processing units are integrated to city. Conventional landfill is extinct. The model has practically infinite life cycle and has very high environment sustainability. The finances: waste drop is by public at their own expenses. Micro biogas plants are financed by public. Ward level biogas plant repay the investment in 4 to 5 years. Composting costs are offset by revenue generated from compost. The additional costs incurred on waste disposal in micro landfills are much less than savings on conventional landfill costs and associated expenditures. Toxic waste processing is charged to public. The model is self-financed and has very high economic sustainability. A food for further research: the micro landfill, as shown in the diagram earlier, is a theoretical concept. It is nowhere tested to best of my knowledge. It needs to be tested and tried with field trials, and maybe the parameters are modified or refined. To conclude, model has high, well-defined logistics management. Resource recovery is near ultimate. The micro landfills are sustainable. The model has high environmental sustainability and is self-financed. The model is highly robust as all redundant elements are eliminated. City expansion does not result in increase of waste disposal cost. The system life cycle is practically infinite. Composition of waste processed by toxic waste processing units is well defined, and it can be processed with optimal results as per available technology. Effective mass communication is most challenging and key parameter in the derived model. The model has capability to play a vital role in uniting and transforming the society for betterment. Long-lasting and sustainable results are feasible in a short time span with requisite dedication and sincerity from all stakeholders. Effective mass communication is the eighth, final, and most crucial key element in the derived model. The success of model is totally dependent on effective mass communication and willpower of executioners. This is the master key to neat and clean cities in future or continuation of current chaotic situation. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Professor Shamla Mani, and she's from NIVA, New Delhi. She'll speak on where PPPP means private-public people's partnership. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm really grateful to the organizers, not only for letting me speak here and giving me a chance to present, but also for serving tea at the right time, and so that all of you are awake. This is about a slightly futuristic idea about how we can take the PPP, which everybody has been discussing, to a certain level where we can be more sensitive to the people, and especially the people who have been involved in waste management up till now, who are the waste pickers and even the municipal workers and all those sanitary working people who have been formally and informally involved with waste management. So what is PPP? Everybody knows that it is an alternative to just privatization. So there is a co-ownership between the public sector and the private organizations. And through PPP, it was believed that the private sector dynamism and access to finance, knowledge of technology, managerial efficiency will come into the public sector, which is supposed to look after things like social responsibility, environmental awareness, local knowledge, job creation and all that. But how did it really start, the evolution of PPP? In Government of India, through Ministry of Food and Agriculture, even in the 1960s, they started giving out loans for composting. And Ministry of Health and Family Welfare also had a national mission on environmental health and sanitation. Ministry of Urban Development, through the CPHEO, prepared a draft policy paper on funding various requirements for MSWM. Then in 1990, there were a whole lot of PILs, public interest litigations, relating to MSWM. And around late 1990s, the increase in the private role, we could see that there were people who had small composting plants, people who were willing to talk to the RWA, somehow get them to segregate their waste, and they would take it to a place which was just outside the city or maybe even within the city. So these were the kind of initiatives that were going on in the country. And then the Supreme Court appointed the Asim Burman Committee, which then recommended that there should be institutional, financial and various types of incentives so that there is a private sector participation. So at that time it was called PSP, and the rationale was, of course, that PSP had potential for funding, and most of the urban local bodies were bankrupt. You might have heard about the case of Ratlam, you might have heard about the case of several other municipalities, where they were taken to court by certain citizens and they just said that, look, we just can't do anything because we don't have the money. So they said that let's bring the PSP, that is, let's bring the private sector. Then came the Municipal Solid Waste Management Rules. Unfortunately, this was the culprit, because in the biomedical waste management rules, who is responsible? The healthcare industry. In the industrial and the hazardous waste management rules, who is responsible? The industries. In municipal solid waste management rules, who is the generator? Is the people. Who is responsible? Is the municipality. So that is the reason why you find that just because we pay some property tax or conservancy tax, as the British terminology, we get the license to throw the garbage wherever we want. And the municipality has to come behind us and pick up all that waste and do what? So this was one of the biggest loopholes which needs to be plugged, first of all. If it is polluter pays, then the citizen has to be responsible and the citizen has to be penalized and has to be made to pay. Unfortunately, that's not there. And that's the reason why many of the municipal commissioners are facing major problems. Several reforms and guidelines and development of model municipal bylaws and all have come. But despite the 13th Finance Commission, where thousands of crores of rupees has been allocated, despite that, we find that this is the state of our cities. It just continues. Unfortunately, you will find that these poor people who have been actually involved in the waste picking, removing at least 15 to 20% of the waste, segregating it, using it, they are completely left out, and they are in fact living in the most difficult circumstances. So if you see the urban agglomeration, according to the 2011 census, we have data now that we have more than 7,900 urban agglomerations, and out of which 468 only are class 1 cities, and just 53 are more than 1 million, and the rest of it, almost 7,600 towns or cities, whatever you call it, they're all small towns. And the composition, we can easily see, everybody has said this, more than 50% of the garbage in India is organic waste. despite the devolution of funds from the 12th Finance Commission, you can see here, I believe this is the pointer, you can see here, I don't know if it's not working, the last one, class 1A, it's got a huge amount of investment. It's the maximum capital investment. But despite that, you just see this, the benchmark backlog shows that the class 1A cities, which have received the highest amount of funds from the 12th Finance Commission, still have not been able to show any better performance than the class 4 or the smaller cities. So then came the JNNURM. Of course, JNNURM has been started for quite some time, and under the obligatory reforms, there's a lot of encouragement for PPPs, and most importantly, there is a lot of encouragement for the involvement of NGOs, CBOs, RWAs in planning, implementation, O&M. But where do we see it? We don't see it anywhere. You see the, if you see the appraisals, you see that all the mandatory reforms are carried out. Obligatory reforms are carried out. But the optional reforms very often get left out. And the present status is that, like somebody said, the 70 million tons is going to become 370 million tons. Service levels are below par. There are huge gaps on coverage of collection or scientific processing, and diversion of landfill is hardly anything, mainly because many of the composting plants are from mixed solid waste, and the rejects are very, very high. And so after so much of investment, huge quantities of investment, we have not been able to divert most of the waste from the SLFs, which are sanitary landfills, and everything is going almost like 60–70% of the waste is going to the SLF. There are SLFs in Surat, it's constructed. There are many other SLFs. We are talking about those particular ones. Ahmedabad has got a constructed SLF. And so these are going to that. And the most important thing is many of the concessioners, they are having a very good time because under JNNURM they get a whole lot of funds. They get all the capital investment. They put up these huge plants. They charge tipping fee, the concessioning document. There's any amount of discussion, controversy on the concessioner documents that, it does not follow some of the guidelines. Some say that it does follow some of the guidelines. There's a whole lot of redundancy in the types of concessioning documents that are available. And then finally you find that the informal rack picker has to literally fight with his own kith and kin who is employed by the concessioner to even have access to the waste which is there in the garbage bin. So some of the PPP projects, we have different types of PPP projects. We have the door-to-door collection ones, which are some of the older ones, street sweeping, which is going on in Surat, Hyderabad. We have integrated treatment and disposal ones. We have got just the storage and transportation ones. And then we have got the final one, the integrated MSWM, which is going on in Guwahati and Hyderabad. None of these have shown as if, there is a major improvement. In none of these models, we have really got the answer. And also the scope of activities, they may change, they may vary. Some have, the typical PPP format, maybe a management contract, sometimes they are service contracts. Like Mr. Prasad Rao pointed out, a concessioner is an owner. Where is the question of contract? But unfortunately, this is what the kind of the wordings, if you go through the actual PPP document, this is what we find, that either it's a BOT or a variance of a BOT, and then of course the O&M contract in that. And then of course the waste pickers, they obviously rally against the company because there are, like somebody said, 70,000, 100,000 families are there in every city which are dependent on waste for their livelihoods. So if you completely eliminate, so they have said in Delhi, for instance, they have said that look, we can do 12 crores a year from composting and 3 crores for transportation of the contract costs. So why don't you give this job to us? But no, you can see that even in these various types of PPP formats, nothing is given to the actual original waste picker or the waste retriever or the rack picker or their associations or their federations. This is very, very unfortunate. And then here also, even in places like GHMC, they have said this, that it costs 700 rupees per ton for doing segregation. But the concessionaire is being given 1,431 ton just for carrying this mixed waste to some other place. It's a tippage. So how is it that we have such a huge elaborate system of accounting and auditing, and despite that double the amount is being given to somebody and nobody is even asking a question? You and I are citizens. It's our taxpayer money that is going in. Are we not going to ask questions? We don't have any problems in chucking the, our cups or our wrappers out of the car windows. But are we not even going to ask about our taxpayer money? So the MSW collection and treatment, you can see I've taken a few countries, and in India you can see that open dumping is maximum. Then comes the sanitary landfilling. In some places, a few places, composting and recycling is very minimal, and then of course incineration. Comparatively, you can see there are places like China or Thailand or Indonesia, even Bangladesh seem to be doing some of the work. Another overview which I tried to get was small scale versus medium scale versus large scale. And you can see here that in the various types of investment costs, obviously the small scale and the medium scale seem to be having much less investment costs. And even in terms of the profit, all the figures on the right hand corner, which are in brackets, are obviously negative. You can see that it is the small scale ones which are actually making a profit. You can see the one in Thailand. Here you can see that they have medium scale ones, and then you have the one in Indonesia and the one in Bangkok. These seem to be making the actual profits. So this is one from Matale from Sri Lanka, and you know that this box type of composting, and they have been doing very well. This is Dhaka in Bangladesh. Somebody Rosita spoke about that, and they have been doing also very well. This is our own. This is at Suryapet, that the segregation of waste. This whole thing was built by the DC for the Municipal Commissioner, Kader Saab at that time. And then this is how the Suryapet people, they organized themselves, and it was because of the Municipal Commissioner's effort that, the segregated waste was transported, and also vermicomposting was done. And this is the kind of rich harvest. They didn't have to promote, or they didn't have to put it into any plastic covers or something like that. The farmers just took it. They of course do a little bit of blending, but only with natural material like rock phosphate. And this is Tirupur, and here also, even in very narrowest streets, they have made arrangements of how to take the waste, even from very narrow streets. And of course the education part, then you can also see that they have involved a PPP, they have involved a private entrepreneur for making the compost, and they have gone ahead and also done certain amount of recycling from the waste that comes, like paper recycling. So that's what I was saying, that if you separate the waste at the correct time, you can get a lot more resources and also be able to do recycle. Here again, this is a paper unit which the Tirupur